Okay, we have made it to part 3 of this series on setting priorities here at Worthy Hours. And this is kind of the meat of this series. It's really important that you've done that groundwork that we talk about in the first 2 episodes. So if you haven't watched them, I'll go ahead and link to them in the description. But once you know the different types of priorities that you're setting and you've thought about why you want to set priorities and kind of debunked some of the myths around them, it's time to actually set them. And this can be a really simple process. You can kind of look at your list for the week or the things that you have to do today or for the month or whatever kind of time frame you're working with, and you can kind of look at them and sort through and go, okay, this is important, this one's not as important, so do the most important ones first or schedule them accordingly, devote more time to them, whatever your life looks like and what works for you. But sometimes we need a little bit of help in setting priorities because things seem equally important. And so the frameworks that I'm going to talk about in this video are there to help you with that. We are going to move from probably most structured to least structured. So if you are a structure person, this first one might be for you. It is called the 9-square grid, and I first learned about it in this beautiful little book called How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. And basically the 9-square method works like this. You make a list of the things that you want to do, probably for a particular category like work or home or taking care of yourself. And then once you have that list, you draw a grid. 3 squares on top, 3 squares in the middle, 3 squares on the bottom. In the top, you list your most important tasks from least amount of effort to most amount of effort. In the middle, you list the tasks that are a tier below that. Again, from least taxing to most taxing. And then on the bottom, you list your 3 least important tasks. Again, on the left, you put the least taxing task, and on the right, you put the most taxing task. You then have a grid that tells you where all of these tasks that you want to do or think you need to do fall. The brilliance of the 9-square grid is that it gives you a framework for both prioritizing what's important and prioritizing the little wins that you can get done on a day when you have low energy or not a lot of time. So how she talks about doing it is that bottom square where it's the least important and the most effort, that's the first thing to go if you're crunched for time or motivation or energy or even all of those things. Then the next 3 squares that surround that are the next ones to go. Then the outline on the left side and the top, those are the things that you're pretty much always going to want to do because they're either A, important enough to warrant it, or B, low enough energy that you can get them done and still feel good about yourself on that day. So I'll link to some more resources that she has about the 9-square method, or you can just get this book on Amazon. It's a really good read. But basically the 9-square method is a way that you can set priorities, but still maintain some flexibility because you are human, you are busy, and sometimes things can't all be done at once. So I personally use the 9-square method in my life, especially relating to self-care tasks and the house. I'm excited to use it a little more for work as well as I get into a more freelancing and self-employed stage of my life. But it's a really helpful framework if you're struggling to set priorities. You can kind of base it on both importance and your ability to do it. And that is where the magic is for this particular framework. Another one that's really popular is attributed to President Eisenhower. It's called the Eisenhower Matrix, and that's what we're going to talk about next. The Eisenhower Matrix is much simpler than the 9-square method, and it's really just a decision-making framework about what you're going to spend your time on in a given day. The Eisenhower Matrix looks like this. You have 1 square, and you divide it into 4 quadrants. On the top, you have important tasks. On the bottom, you have not important tasks. On the left, you have urgent tasks. And on the right, you have not urgent tasks. You then sort all of your things that you have going on in your life or in your work or whatever into these quadrants. I've seen a lot of examples online, but here's one that I came up with. Once you've done your sorting, you're then freed up to realize what things actually deserve your time and attention and what things don't. So for example, if something is both important and urgent, you probably need to drop everything and attend to it right away. If something is urgent but not important, you may need to develop some strategies for either A, making sure that these urgent tasks are taken care of but not by you, or B, trying to get ahead of them so that they don't become urgent on you, depending on the kind of task that it is. If it's important but not urgent, these are the things that kind of get swept under the rug, but then years later we realize, oh, we should have been working on them all along. Like exercise, or like maybe if you're trying to write a book, writing a little bit every single day or every week. And then finally, in the last quadrant, those are the things that you probably don't want to be focusing on at all. These are the time wasters. These are the things that if you need to do them, you probably want to delegate them as soon as you possibly can. And if you don't need to do them, you want to find ways to reduce them. I first learned about this matrix from Sahil Bloom, and I will try to link to his coaching on that as well so that you can check that out if you want to learn more. But it's a really simple way to think about all the things on your to-do list, and it's surprisingly effective. Okay, and then the final method for prioritization that I'm going to talk about in this video, I'm sure there are lots of other ones, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But the final method I'm going to talk about in this video is just simply asking questions, okay? When you are trying to set priorities, and you're not sure where to start, it helps to have some questions that you ask yourself. And you can make these questions up. I'm going to share with you some that I use when I'm trying to prioritize. And then you just sort of use those as your guiding principles for what you're going to try to get done before you do everything else done. So one question that I often use is, what is going to help me feel the best if I complete it? So for example, let's say I have 5 things that seem really urgent and really important on my list. I might sort through and think, okay, which one is actually going to make me feel the best to complete? That might be the longest project. That might be the shortest project. If I compare kind of like my energy levels or the motivation I'm going to get from completing a project, I will choose the one that's going to really energize me by completing, or that's going to be a really big weight off of my chest, right? Another question that I will ask myself is, what are the deadlines for these tasks, and which ones are firm and which ones are movable, right? This question alone is a little bit tricky because it can make you prioritize the urgent things over the important but not urgent things, which is a trap that we generally want to avoid. But there are days and times where you just have a lot of things coming up and you need to make sure that you deal with them in an organized and timely manner, right? You can't turn in a project late to your boss and then just explain, well, I had more important things going on with this other project over here, and I think it's more meaningful, so I just kind of brush this one aside, right? Like, you can't do that. So sometimes you do have to take into consideration these deadlines and make sure that you are scheduling or organizing your time accordingly. A final question that I ask myself, and this is actually 2 questions in one, is what would I say is the most important thing that I'm working on right now? And do my actions and the way I spend my time reflect that? So for example, one of the most important things in my life right now is working on this YouTube channel. It's something that is a dream of mine that I really want to see succeed. But if I say that it's important to me, but then I only spend maybe an hour a week thinking about videos or trying to make one, then I'm not really reflecting the importance of that with the way that I am spending my time. So I want to make sure that both my priorities and my actions align. And so I go ahead and do that little gut check sometimes. And that one I can do while I'm planning. I can kind of do it throughout the week. And if I need to realign my to-do list to match those priorities, I try to do that. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Let me know your thoughts and which method you think you're going to try to use, maybe which ones you've used in the past. If I missed some, because I'm sure that I did, please let me know. I would love to research them and maybe do a future video on them. All right, see you later.